Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. My name is Nora Farkas, and today we'll be talking telecom security, specifically how to keep networks safe as they go smarter and more autonomous. I have three fantastic experts here with me. Lucas Ferreyra, Senior Industry Analyst at Frost & Sullivan. Rick Lievano, CTO of Worldwide Telecommunications Industry at Microsoft. And Vinod Nair, Chief Security Architect at Nokia. Welcome. So we are going to be live for the next 30 minutes, so feel free to ask your questions or drop your thoughts in the chat as we go. But let's get started. So dear speakers, we are hearing from a lot of telco operators that they are aiming for high levels of autonomy by 2030. So around 80% say that that's the goal, but only 5% are there today. So in an industry that is so complex and increasingly targeted like telecoms, security has to be built into this whole transformation from the start, right? So the topic that I'd like to address today is how do we secure networks that can sense, think, and act on their own? But Vinod, I'd like to start with you first. And since the telco threat landscape is super broad, so from legacy infrastructure vulnerabilities to AI-driven attacks on the other spectrum, can you please walk us through what's driving these trends and why are telcos such a big target right now?
Thank you, Nora. That's an excellent question. And let me try to address it this way. So telecom networks these days are not just about network connectivity services for subscribers, but in fact, they have grown into mission-critical assets for business, public safety, government, military, right? A lot of business and a lot of important functions run on top of telecom networks. So for example, with new 5G capabilities, there is a great deal of industrial automation going on in factories and ports. There are first responder networks that can respond to emergencies that are running off of these kind of networks. And the whole internet ecosystem of both people and things runs on networks, right? So the effect of a service disruption due to a security event is society-wide. And bad actors are well aware of this. They often use this to their advantage for financial gain in terms of ransomware or theft of personal information and so forth. But even more concerning is the emergence of the nation-state actor attacks, right? So there are these days many events reported in the news about big attacks on, for example, U.S. telecom networks. The Salt Typhoon is a recent example, where nation-state actors are engaged in subverting the networks, putting introducing security vulnerabilities and security attacks on these networks with the purpose of disrupting the life of ordinary citizens and of the government itself. So the reasoning for these kind of attacks goes far beyond commercial, and with the geopolitical situation as it is today, this is only going to get worse. So the other aspect that we need to consider is that telecom networks are very complex entities, right? They are highly distributed across typically multiple geographical regions. It could be within country. It could in some cases even be across a continent. And with such large scales, with the radio network being highly distributed, sometimes not even attended, they are just deployed in different locations and not attended. So these kind of networks have a very big attack surface. Not only that, there's a whole concept of roaming, where subscribers can move across regions and they still have the connectivity. This is made possible by roaming arrangements between different telecom providers, and there's a trust relationship that needs to be set up, and often that becomes a point of entry for attackers. And then the final aspect that has actually lowered the bars for these kind of big attacks is the arrival of GenAI, which has made it possible to mount sophisticated attacks against the complex protocols in a network just by using these kind of advanced AI technologies. Previously, what used to be a skills gap barrier for these kind of concentrated attacks are now no longer an issue, right? So even small, relatively small actors can harness the power of Gen AI to subvert network operations. So these are some of the trends that we observe today in terms of telecom security and the impact it's going to have.
Thanks, Vinod. And yeah, just reflecting on this complexity and the distributed nature of telecom infrastructures, as you say, security silos just don't work anymore, right? So we need something that can correlate across domains, contextualize, and sort of act across the full stack. And this is where XDR, or extended detection and response, comes in. So Lucas, I'll turn to you. And from your perspective, what is XDR and why is it particularly relevant for telecom operators?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very good question. And I think that so you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned the cybersecurity silos, right? Because first of all, the goal of XDR is to provide comprehensive and holistic cybersecurity across the ecosystem, whatever shape that ecosystem might take, right? So breaking down the silos means having all of the information concentrated and correlated in a single platform, and in that way to be able to provide better prevention, detection, and response against threats. So from its inception, XDR has always relied on three core promises to reach its goals, right? So the first one is the integration of the entire cybersecurity ecosystem, and this includes data ingestion across both native and third-party tools, which provides this unhindered visibility over the ecosystem. The second is its ability to provide cross-layer detection and response across such such ecosystems, meaning that on top of visibility, you also need to deliver actionability. And this includes, correlating and contextualizing events, analyzing user behavior, tracking lateral movements, and more, right? All to get this complete picture of the attack. And this is the kind of secret sauce that allows XDR to provide more visibility than the sum of its parts, right? So you probably know of the parable of the blind man and the elephant, right? So in short, there's a group of blind men touching different parts of the body of an elephant, like the legs, the belly, the trunk, the tail, the tusk. And each of them identifies the elephant as something different, right? So for instance, the one who's touching the tusk says it's a spear. The one who's touching the leg says it's a tree trunk, right? And there are many versions of this story, and there's one in which they even end up fist fighting because of the disagreement. But there are others in which they end up communicating effectively and realizing their mistake, right? So this kind of serves to illustrate the idea that isolated cybersecurity solutions would not necessarily correctly identify a security threat with their limited information, right? So XDR kind of like connects all of those perspectives, right? So then the third promise is something that is ubiquitous in cybersecurity solutions right now, which is meaningful automation capabilities. With the increasing number of and complexity of threats, the shortage of cybersecurity personnel, and the need to act faster and faster, AI, machine learning, GenAI, they're now essential for any cybersecurity platform, right? And then finally, there is a fourth promise. I know I said they were three at first, but this is becoming more and more important as of now, and involves XDR vendors pivoting into proactive security, which includes more prevention-based capabilities like identity, behavior analysis, security assessments, and more. And so to respond to the second part of your question, I'll say a key factor for why telecommunications companies need XDR is the complexity of their infrastructure, right? They as Vinod mentioned a bit of this, but they have endpoints, they have networks, they have cloud, of course, and they also have other telemetry from other environments. But this is the important part. These organizations also have interconnected networks of infrastructure that enable their telecommunication capabilities, right? And this includes data centers, cell towers, different types of network nodes, mobile stations, satellite systems, and these are just some examples of this critical infrastructure. And this means that their attack surface is extremely extensive, and many, if not all of these elements represent potential ways for attackers to infiltrate the environment. And also these networks are massive, and they can grow significantly at any time when the telecommunication firm expands across new regions, for instance. So the protection needs not only to be comprehensive, but also to be able to scale quickly without the need to necessarily hire more analysts, right? So to truly paint the complete picture of the attack story in an environment such as this, with such varied and massive infrastructure at risk, organizations in the telco business need this kind of visibility, correlation, contextualization, and the intervention of AI, machine learning, and the help of GenAI security assistance. And this is exactly what XDR platforms bring to the table. It empowers cybersecurity analysts and provides them with a wealth of information to deal with any kind of threat that is located at any point within this incredibly complex telecommunications networks. And so, yeah, I think that there are many, many other things that we could continue discussing and saying about the merits of XDR, but I think that's the most important part of it.
And thanks so much, Lucas. I really like that analogy with the elephant. I've not heard this before. So as you say, correlation alone isn't enough, right? So we need that intelligence. We need GenAI and AI to sort of now become central to the security operations for telcos as well. So I'd like to turn to Rick and just ask, how is AI sort of transforming the way telcos detect and respond to threats now? Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, thanks, Nora. Really interesting discussion. The elephant thing kept me a little bit occupied here. So generative AI is really ushering, I think, a new agentic security age, right? This is where we have ultra specialized security agents that work alongside humans. They work alongside your SOC team. They're really a part of your SOC team. They also work alongside each other to detect and to prevent security events. And this transformation to this agentic security age is really driven by several key factors. Certainly generative AI is top of mind. But first, we're really beginning to see the development and the deployment of security-specific AI agents. These agents, of course, are powered by generative AI, and they can rapidly aggregate, they can analyze vast amounts of cyber threat data, far more than a human could. They provide enhanced detection, resolution capabilities. We've got a great example in the Nokia NetGuard Cybersecurity Dome. This great product, and I'm very proud of that alliance that we have related to CyberDome. It integrates telco-centric GenAI assistant, right? And that assistant is based on the Azure OpenAI service, but it helps telcos and enterprises quickly detect and eliminate cyber threats. It's really like that perfect companion for your SOC analysts, for your network engineers. Essentially, it's a buddy that they can consult to more rapidly resolve issues. In a similar vein, we've got Microsoft recently announced security copilot agents. These agents exemplify really the power of GenAI in transforming your security operations. The agents themselves leverage large language models, of course, to provide real-time threat response with AI-driven recommendations, prioritization, remediation of issues. It really does enhance your telco network security efficiency. There's 6 new agents that were announced, and I kind of see them as the next evolution of Security Copilot, and they're really designed to be autonomous, right? They can autonomously assist you with critical areas, whether it's phishing or data security, threat intelligence, identity management, and so on. And they're important. Why are they important? Because we've got this relentless pace of complexity of cyber attacks. They've really surpassed human capacity and our ability to deal with them, right? So establishing these AI agents are really a necessity for modern security. They're no longer an option. Let's face it, the bad guys have AI. They've been using AI for a long time. They're on the bleeding edge. They're using AI agents. We've heard a number of horror stories in that vein. And so we need AI, and we need those AI agents as well. Now, specialized agents that are trained on telco data and telco frameworks, whether it's 5G network architecture, topology, frameworks like Moderator, Attack, and Fight, these types of specialized agents can significantly transform how we secure and how we manage our telco networks. These agents are going to interpret complex network topologies, your security practices, enabling really more effective way of threat identification and resolution. We've got another great example again with Nokia GenAI Assistant. Really incorporates insights not only from your various different signals from network, but also from 5G specific network topology, from architectures, from security practices, and it really is able to reduce the time to identify and resolve threats by up to 50%. That's an awesome metric. And then lastly, again, LLM-driven automation is going to assist your SOC teams by detecting, contextualizing, summarizing incidents, for example, improving the reporting. But here's the important piece. If the AI agents can do all of that, they're really reducing the cognitive load in your SOC team. So your SOC teams, your people, can focus on more important tasks, higher value tasks. Now think of an example. We have this phishing agent I just discussed. The phishing agent is always on. It's always analyzing emails. It doesn't get tired. It analyzes behaviors, links, attachments. It's able to read an image and actually determine what the image is, right? Always looking for those phishing indicators. And that agent can autonomously triage suspicious emails, determine which ones are genuine threats, right? Rather than just false alarms. It can trigger other agents to do deeper analysis, again, all autonomously. And it's really going to reduce the manual workload on your SOC analysts. So just to summarize, those GenAI capabilities are powering this next leap in telco security XDR. It's going to be enabled by those ultra specialized agents that I discussed that are trained on telco data and providing LLM-driven automation to assist your SOC teams. Great combination of technologies and practices that ensures a more robust, a more efficient approach to securing and managing your telco networks.
Thanks, Rick. Thanks for making the note of the GenAI assistant within cybersecurity dome, because that's a great segue to what I have in mind to ask from Vinod. So how do we use GenAI for proactive hunting for threats? Because we recently announced the Hunt Assistant within Cybersecurity Dome, and it is also specifically built for telco environments, as you said, Rick. So Vinod, how does the Hunt Assistant work in practice, and why is proactive hunting so important for telcos right now?
Thank you, Nora. A very important and interesting question, and a lot of it takes what Rick was saying in his previous presentation about the importance of GenAI assisted operations, taking that in fact to the next level. So the specific use case that we have in mind is called the Hunt Assistant, and basically it's a GenAI powered tool that helps SOC analysts or SOC operations team to proactively look for threats, right? These are threats that are probably not yet known, not yet codified as rules or detection rules. It's basically operating against raw data and threat intelligence to look for evidence and to create detection rules and containment actions using the power of GenAI. So the specific use case that we looked at because of our telco background is in the area of signaling. And specifically around in signaling, there are many different protocols, but one of them called SS7, which is 65% of the traffic, is also one of the older protocols that's still in considerable amount of use. These protocols aren't necessarily designed with the latest security safeguards in mind. They are from legacy systems. And some of the ways this threat actors use weaknesses in these kind of protocols, is one of them is fraud, right? Basically, to be able to recover identities of the SIMs and be able to do SIM swapping, which can enable fraud in bank transactions and so forth. They can also be used to mount DOS attacks, SMS flooding attacks against networks, therefore, impacting the service quality. Spam is another big use for this kind of attack, and in fact, location tracking, which has implications in terms of data privacy and security for individuals, especially high-value individuals, is another common attack pattern. So our approach in this tool is basically to do a left shift. So we are basically using the GenAI assistant, which is, as Rick was describing, continuously monitoring telemetry and observability data coming in from different points in the network. And these can be sources such as signaling firewalls. It can be the network functions inside the network. All this telemetry is continuously streaming towards the GenAI assistant. Now, that's a rather large haystack to look for. So to make this whole process a lot more efficient and targeted, we combine that telemetry together with threat intelligence. In our use case, it is signaling threat intelligence from that is reporting about malicious nodes in the SS7 network that comes in from a worldwide repository. So based on this trigger, the GenAI assistant is able to look for patterns of attack or evidence of patterns of attack in the telemetry. So these can be mapped to, for example, the MITRE tactics, TTPs. And from that attack chain, the AI is able to construct an assessment of whether the threat is active currently in the network, what is the state, and what containment actions can be taken. And this is presented then to a human who is typically a data science type of person and who's able to understand some of the low-level details. And a lot of the grunge work that the data scientist has to previously had to do in terms of being able to create these queries against the different data stores, understand and create hypotheses, all of this is automated by the Hunt Assistant. And in the end, the human is more of an observer rather than a doer. And basically that human is able to confirm the findings and then findings of the Hunt Assistant. The next step, once this threat is confirmed, is to automatically generate the detection rules in the playbooks. And that is the second piece of the automation that the Hunt Assistant can do, which basically enables the rules, the threat containment rules and the threat detection rules to be almost instantaneously be deployed into the production SOC so that the system is immediately active and is able to protect against these kind of threats. So in short, the Hunt Assistant is basically an end-to-end solution that allows very fast detection of these kind of unknown threats and be able to reduce the overall time from the moment that a threat is known to the time that it can be managed and contained within the telco environment. So that's in a nutshell what the Hunt Assistant does.
Thanks, Vinod. I think it's a great tie back to Lucas's mention of the fourth pillar for proactive defense. What can we do proactively with the large amount of threat intelligence data, like signaling data coming in, and then how we map it to the telemetry data, and how do we build use case proactively to combat these unique and new attacks. So perhaps, Lucas, it's a good segue to you that it's also been exciting that this approach has been recognized externally. So your team, Lucas, named Nokia #2 innovation leader in your latest Frost Radar for XDR. Can you please elaborate on what stood out to you and what does it signal about where the market is heading?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me first put it a little bit in context. For those who don't know, the Frost Radar is a benchmarking tool in which we plot leaders, leading companies in a certain space according to their innovation and growth capabilities. And in general, this includes many different factors and criteria, such as growth pipeline, vision and strategy, revenue, research and development, customer alignment, but in the case of XDR, we're also evaluating how each company delivers on those, 4 pillars of or core promises of XDR. And so there are dozens upon dozens of cybersecurity vendors providing XDR, and many of them come from very different backgrounds. Some started their journey as endpoint detection and response companies, and then added integration capabilities. Other companies, other firms started as threat intelligence companies with excellent correlation and integration features, but they needed to develop their own detection and response capabilities or offer, fully open versions of XDR. Others had a background in network security, cloud security, and so on and so on. So the idea is that while XDR is definitely a distinct solution category, each top XDR vendor has its own unique twist to it, which makes it incredibly difficult to score them on a benchmarking tool such as this one, right? So in terms of market direction, I think one thing that's very clear is that while there are still generalists that aim to provide XDR capabilities that work for any kind of company, there's also a trend toward specialization. And so Rick and Vinod have already pointed out, so for certain vertical industries or sectors, there is a pressing need for specific tools, specific data, and machine learning models that train on that specific data, right? Because the threats that cybersecurity analysts face are also very specific to their industry. The way to protect those environments should also be highly specialized. And this leads to more and more focused XDR solutions. So Nokia is a great example of this, right? Of course, it delivers on the 4 promises of XDR with its many capabilities, but I'd like to focus on just a few features that are notable that I think that really make it one of the best choices for both telecommunication firms and also mission-critical organizations. So Nokia has an extensive history of working with companies in these sectors, especially telcos, and the firm truly understands their environments, right? So Nokia has focused on digital transformation, edge computing, and investing in 6G preparedness. And it also really truly understands the technology that these companies are using and how to secure it. And that's a differentiator in itself, right? Knowing the business of your customers is extremely important, because that allows you to, understand their needs and their vulnerabilities, and informs the development of your own solution. So many of these organizations are in the Industry 4.0 group, operating in sectors such as telecommunications, utilities, transportation, manufacturing. And as we were mentioning before, those ecosystems include really complex, and they include operational technologies, IoT devices, and many of these cannot directly support traditional agents such as EDR, for instance, right? So this combination between customer need and vendor knowledge has led to Nokia building a library of connectors and interfaces to provide visibility across these very convoluted ecosystems, honestly, and also to the development of specialized threat detection capabilities that can protect critical network functions without compromising their performance, which is also something that's incredibly important in these networks. You cannot simply, stop something without something else breaking, right? So the feature that I like the most about Nokia XDR solution is its command center, but more specifically, its representation of the customer environment. There's this thing in mathematics known as graph theory, which is the study of graphs, right? So a graph is a model that has nodes connected with links among each other. And I know this concept more through social network analysis, which is the version of graph theory that anthropologists use to study basically anything. And the idea is that while nodes are important, what makes them really relevant is the number and type of connection that they have with other nodes and how central they are to the entire network. So going back to telecommunication infrastructure and Nokia, the firm's XDR solution leverages this graph theory to establish degrees of risk within the different elements of the network, right? And it not only provides a very intuitive graphical representation of the network, it also includes contextual information such as interconnectivity data. So what this does is this really allows analysts to measure the effects of an attack on any part of that infrastructure and provide security teams with a major risk assessment tool that can be used to prioritize incident response and threat hunting across these really, really complex ecosystems, right? So additionally, of course, I know that Vinod and Rick already touched on this, but having AI models trained on specific data is also a major advantage to providing the best cybersecurity for a certain sector, right? So we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of AI-powered and state-backed cybersecurity attacks. And mission-critical organizations, including telecommunications, will increasingly be targets of these attacks if the geopolitical situation continues to be, let's say, dicey. So the idea is that protecting these environments in this way is an incredibly good differentiator. And I think that the market will move towards this kind of specialization in certain sectors for sure.
Great observations, Lucas. And I think we've talked a lot about capabilities. Now let's switch to reflecting on the maturity, because technology isn't the only variable. So we have trust, we have market readiness, we have alignment. These are also just as important. So we have the TM Forum's automation maturity model that inspired us to outline a similar 5-step path on security, evolving from basic monitoring capabilities all the way to fully autonomous SOCs. So Rick, this last question will go to you, and I'd like to ask, where do you see most CSPs today on this path, and what's really the one thing that they need to do to sort of move forward with confidence?
Yeah, great question. And first, I think Nokia has done a spectacular job adapting the TM Forum autonomous network levels for security specifically, right? And so kudos for that. I think that for many CSPs, the goal is really ultimately to achieve level 4 and 5, right? This is where you become highly autonomous to fully autonomous. Nevertheless, the Gartner Analyst states that around, most of them are around levels 1, level 2 for your traditional network autonomy, which really means that they've only got basic automation in place, and they still rely heavily on human intervention for important decisions, and of course for network management tasks, for actually doing something with your hands. So in general, I think telcos are struggling really with this fragmented legacy systems and very, very limited AI readiness, right? They're still investing, they're still kind of building that AI muscle. So I kind of tend to agree with that analysis, right? So probably around level 1 or level 2. So what do we need to do? I think telcos really just need to invest in this continuous automation advancement in their SOCs, right? That's the way they're going to protect their networks as these networks grow smarter, as they grow faster, as they grow to be more autonomous, and of course, as the threats also grow. And that's going to involve ensuring that AI can act swiftly, of course, while maintaining human oversight. That part is very important. Gaining transparency, so we want to understand what AI is doing. And it's going to increase our ability to really handle unpredictable scenarios that perhaps, the AI hasn't been trained for. So I think really the recommendation here is you need to obviously invest in AI, invest in those skills, deploy AI agent solutions quickly, and iterate. Don't wait for perfection, right? Get the solutions out there, get them into production. It's going to enable you to gradually, and that's the important piece, gradually gain trust in the decisions that these AI agents are making and the recommendations that they're making. It's going to help you understand how they reason, right? How are they coming to those conclusions? And obviously enable you to make adjustments, make tweaks before you really enable any sort of autonomy even for specific use cases. But what you'll have is that over time, as you kind of build up this catalog of use cases that you trust, this catalog is going to be growing with fully kind of automated types of solutions that are going to move you closer to your level 4 or 5 goal.
Yeah, excellent closing thoughts, Rick. Thanks so much. But yeah, thanks to all of you, Lucas, Rick, and Vinod, for the great insights, and to all of you, the audience, for tuning in. If today's session sparked something, we have a deeper dive webinar coming up next week. We'll be going hands-on with GenAI-driven proactive threat hunting for telecom, so make sure you tune in. We have the QR code here on the screen. And also, if you are curious about the collaboration between Microsoft and Nokia around service orchestration with GenAI, then the next LinkedIn Live link will be in the chat, so go save your spot. But until then, stay secure and see you soon. Thank you all.